I'm Marcel Silvius. I'm the head of program of climate smart land use of Wetlands International. Well, wetlands and peatlands are tremendously important for a lot of things, for biodiversity, for food production, but there also are tremendous carbon stores, and particularly the peatlands. Peatlands actually cover only a very small fraction of the land surface of the world, but they store 2 times more carbon than all the world's forests together. But when these peatlands are being degraded, when they are being drained for agriculture or forestry, then they become emission sources. So then they can start emitting a lot of greenhouse gases. But for most of the agriculture, these very wet systems need to be drained of the water. So they will dig canals and then the water goes out. But if you do this in organic soil, such as peatlands, then the organic soil becomes exposed, the carbon, and that starts oxidating and it goes up in the air as carbon dioxide. So it's the drainage that is causing the climate impact. It is a very complex issue. Again, I mentioned this very small area of degrading peatland. It covers actually less than 0.5% of the global land surface, but it is responsible for a total of 5% of all the anthropogenic emissions. So in that sense, if you are focusing on these areas, if you would restore them, you're only affecting a very small part of your productivity and you're stopping a large amount of emissions. So what we are advocating is to introduce sustainable forms of agriculture and forestry on these peatlands and to re-wet the peatlands, to get the water levels back to a near natural situation and then to start planting other crop species that can grow and produce under such wet circumstances. The key countries where this issue can be addressed actually incorporates only 25 countries. There are 25 countries that are responsible for 95% of all the peatland related emissions in the world. Some of the biggest emitters are Indonesia, but also Russia, but also the European Union. So you find peatlands all over the world, but particularly in these 25 countries, if we focus on those, we can reduce all these emissions from peatland degradation. There's a huge link to food security. Imagine all these peatlands, they are lying, many of them are lying in lowland areas. Like in Indonesia, about 21 million hectares are lying in the lowlands of Sumatra and Kalimantan and Papua. Again, when these areas are being drained, the water goes out and then the soil starts compacting. Then if the carbon that is remaining, if that goes up in the air as carbon dioxide, it goes even further down until it reaches the drainage limit. So it becomes almost equal to sea level. Then it floods. When it is flooded, these areas lose their productivity. That means that millions and millions of hectares that are currently being used for the production of palm oil, for the production of pulp for paper, and for many other crops, they will lose their productivity. The same has happened in countries like the Netherlands, where I'm from. And now half of the Netherlands lies below sea level because we've been draining peatlands. But in the Netherlands we built dikes and we're pumping out the water. But this is extremely expensive and it can't be done for these huge areas in Indonesia. So Indonesia has to come with different alternatives. And this is at the moment actually being propagated by the Indonesian government. The Indonesian government has established a program to restore, for the time being, 2 million hectares of peatlands. And the aim is to do this by 2020. And they have established a National Peatland Restoration Agency. So this is excellent progress. Also in Russia, we see that this is happening. But in Russia, it is being done particularly in relation to the fire risks. Also in Indonesia, there have been a lot of fires in peatlands, in these drained and dry peatlands. And in very dry years, linked to the El Nino effect, these areas become so dry that millions of hectares can burn. And that causes a lot of smog. And the smog covers the lands of Sumatra, Kalimantan, but also Malaysia and Singapore and Thailand. Sometimes it reaches even the coast of East Africa. So all that smoke also has a huge impact on public health. In Russia, for instance, the thousands and thousands of peat fires in very dry years can kill over 100,000 people. In Indonesia also last year, fires destroyed 3.2 million hectares of peatlands and killed 10,000s of people in that country. And then 100,000 or even more than 1 million people are being hospitalized, and many people are caught up in the smoke in very remote areas. They can't even go to hospitals. They can't get medical assistance. So there's a very big link to the degradation, the drainage of these peatlands and public health, but also to the food security. It is important in the medium to long term to restore all these areas to ensure that they remain productive land areas for agriculture and forestry. Now, coincidence is that if you restore them, if you re-wet them, you can also stop all these emissions that have a huge impact on climate change. So there's a win for climate, there's a win for food security, a win for public health, and there's a win for economy, because all these peat fires and the peat smoke, they destroy huge assets, and they have an impact on many sectors in the economy, like the transport sector. In 1997, a study was done on the impact of the fires then in Indonesia on, for instance, transport in Singapore, and over 1,100 flights, international flights, were being cancelled just for this. And you can imagine the impact that has on the aviation sector. So, for various reasons, the public health, the economy, the agriculture and forestry, and last but not least, for the climate, it is very important to restore peatland areas.